Farmer hears noise in the chicken coop and can't believe his eyes. Harold Thompson woke up startled in the middle of the night when he heard his chickens making a noise different from the usual. At 68 years old, the farmer knew every sound that came from the chicken coop, and this was not the birds' usual clucking. They were cries of fright, as if something or someone was disturbing the animals. He got out of bed grumbling, grabbed the old flashlight he always kept on the nightstand, and walked barefoot to the porch. The cold night air hit his face as he directed the beam of light toward the small wooden chicken coop he had built with his own hands 20 years earlier. "What the devil is going on over there?" he murmured, adjusting his straw hat on his head before descending the porch steps. The noise from the chickens grew louder as he approached. Harold knew those sounds well. It wasn't a predator. It was something different. His boots made noise on the packed dirt ground as he cautiously walked toward the chicken coop door. When he opened the creaky wooden door, the flashlight beam illuminated a scene that left him completely paralyzed. In the darkest corner of the coop, huddled among the agitated chickens, was a girl of about 12 years old. She held in her arms a baby who couldn't have been more than a few months old. The girl looked up with frightened eyes when the flashlight beam hit her face. Her curly hair was disheveled, and her clothes, torn in several places, were dirty with dirt and straw. The baby in her arms was crying softly, and she tried to comfort it by rocking it gently. "Please, don't scream," whispered the girl in a trembling voice. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just needed a place to sleep." Harold was speechless for a few seconds, trying to process what he was seeing. A child, in his chicken coop, in the middle of the night with a baby in her arm. "Who are you?" he finally asked, keeping his voice low so as not to frighten the girl further. "How did you get here?" "My name is Emily," she replied, wiping the tears streaming down her face. "I walked a long way to get here. I saw the light from your house yesterday and waited for nightfall to go into the coop." The farmer observed the situation more closely. The girl was visibly weak and hungry. The baby wore a cloth diaper that needed changing, and an empty baby bottle lay beside them in the straw. "Is this baby your brother?" asked Harold, noting that the child was too young to be a mother. Emily hesitated before answering, looking away. "Yes," she murmured. "He's my little brother." Harold realized she was lying. There was something in the way she held the baby, in the way she looked at him, that didn't match the behavior of an older sister. It was something more protective, more maternal. "Where did you run away from?" he insisted. "From the city," Emily replied quickly. "Our parents, they—" She began to cry louder. "Please don't send me away. I take good care of him, I promise. We just need a place to stay." The baby began to cry louder, and Emily tried to calm him by softly humming a lullaby. Harold watched the scene and felt something stir in his chest. It had been years since he'd seen children on his property. Ever since his wife Dorothy had passed, he had lived completely alone. "Are you hungry?" he asked, against all his instincts of suspicion. Emily looked up hopefully. "Very," she admitted. "We haven't eaten anything since yesterday morning." "And his milk ran out." Harold took a deep breath. He knew he should call the authorities. Lost children in the middle of the night wasn't common, and surely someone was looking for them. But when he looked at the girl's thin face and heard the baby's weak cry, he couldn't make that decision. "Come on," he finally said. "Let's go to the house. You need food and a bath." Emily got up slowly, holding the baby carefully. The chickens, which had calmed down, began to settle back on their roosts. Harold guided the girl and the baby to the house, lighting the path with the lantern. In the simple but clean kitchen, he warmed milk on the wood stove and prepared a butter sandwich. Emily devoured the food as if she hadn't eaten in days, while giving the warm milk to the baby in a bottle Harold found in a drawer. "What's his name?" asked the farmer, watching the baby drink eagerly. "Benjamin," Emily replied without hesitation. "Benjamin James." "And your parents," insisted Harold. "They must be worried." Emily's face closed off again, and she began to tremble. "They don't care," she said softly. "My father. He—" She stopped talking and shook her head. "I can't go back. I can't take Benjamin back." Harold noticed purple marks on the girl's arms when she lifted her sleeve to wipe the baby's face. His heart tightened. He had seen marks like that before when he was young and witnessed situations of violence in other families in the area. "Did someone hit you?" he asked carefully. Emily didn't answer, but her tears began to fall again. Harold understood he had discovered the reason for the escape. "It's okay," he said gently. "Tonight you sleep here. Tomorrow we'll talk more." He prepared an improvised bed in the guest room he hadn't used in years, with clean sheets he kept in the closet. Emily laid the baby in the middle of the bed and snuggled next to him, still afraid the farmer might change his mind. "Thank you," she whispered before Harold left the room. "You're welcome," he replied, closing the door slowly. In his own bed, Harold lay awake for hours, thinking about the unusual situation. For 15 years, since Dorothy had passed away from pneumonia, he had lived a solitary life on the small farm. He raised some chickens, planted enough to survive, and rarely had visitors. The presence of the two children had completely changed the energy of the house. The next morning, he woke to the sound of the baby crying. When he entered the room, he found Emily changing little Benjamin's diaper with impressive skill for someone her age. She had washed the dirty diaper in the basin he had left in the room and hung it in the window to dry. "Good morning," she said shyly when she saw him at the door. "Good morning," replied Harold. "How did you sleep?" "Much better than in the last few weeks," she admitted. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. Harold prepared breakfast for everyone. Emily ate slowly, savoring every bite of the fresh bread he had baked in the early morning. The baby nursed well and seemed calmer than the night before. "Emily," said Harold, sitting at the kitchen table, "I need to know the truth about you two. If someone is looking, I need to know." The girl stopped eating and stared at her plate. "No one is looking," she murmured. "How can you be sure?" "Because they were happy when I ran away," she said, her voice full of hurt. "My mother said it was a relief to have one less mouth to feed. And my stepfather—" She stopped, trembling. Harold waited patiently. "He did bad things to me," she continued, almost whispering. "Things he shouldn't do. And when I got pregnant—" She stopped abruptly, covering her mouth with her hands. The farmer felt his blood run cold. The truth hit him like lightning. The baby wasn't the girl's brother. He was her son. And from the words she had let slip, the situation was even more serious than he had imagined. "Benjamin is your son," he said gently. Emily began to cry uncontrollably. "Please don't tell anyone," she begged. "If they find out, they'll take me away and give Benjamin to other people. I can't lose him. He's all I have." Harold stood up and went to her, placing a paternal hand on her shoulder. "No one is going to take your son from you," he said firmly. "Not while I'm alive." During the following days, Harold watched Emily caring for Benjamin with a dedication that impressed him. She would wake before dawn when the baby cried, change diapers, give him baths, sing him to sleep. Even though she was so young, she was a devoted and loving mother. The girl also helped with the farm chores. She cared for the chickens with special affection, as if they had been the ones who welcomed her that first night. She swept the house, prepared simple meals, and kept everything organized. Harold, who was used to solitude, began to grow accustomed to the sounds of life. The baby's cry, Emily's songs, the conversations during meals. One afternoon, when Harold returned from town where he had gone to buy medicine, he found Emily in the yard, washing clothes in the tub. Benjamin was sleeping in an improvised basket under the shade of a large tree. The scene was so ordinary, so familiar, that for a moment he forgot those children weren't his family. "How was town?" asked Emily, hanging a diaper on the clothesline. "Fine," he replied, but there was something in his voice that made her stop what she was doing. Did something happen? Harold hesitated. In town, he had overheard conversations at the market about a family looking for a missing daughter. The description matched Emily exactly. "People are looking for you," he finally said. Emily's face turned pale. "Who?" "A woman who says she's your mother. She was asking at the market if anyone had seen a girl with curly hair and a baby." Emily dropped the clothes she was washing and ran to pick Benjamin up in her arms. "She can't find me," she said desperately. "She'll take me back. And there Benjamin won't be safe." "Calm down," said Harold, seeing the panic in the girl's eyes. "No one knows you're here. My farm is far from the main road. But if she keeps looking, we'll figure it out," he promised. That night, Harold lay awake thinking about the situation. Emily was only 12 years old and the mother of a baby just a few months old. She had run away from a home where she suffered abuse. If she were found and forced to return, he didn't know what might happen to her and Benjamin. For the first time in 15 years since Dorothy left, Harold felt he had a greater purpose in life beyond tending the farm. Those two children needed him, and he discovered he needed them too. The next morning, he made a decision. "Emily," he called during breakfast, "I want you to feel at home here. You can stay as long as you want." The girl's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Really?" "Really," he confirmed. "But we'll have to be careful. If your mother is looking, she might show up here too." "I'll do anything," said Emily. "I'll work, take care of the house, help with the chickens. Just don't send me away." "I won't send you away," Harold assured her. "You're family now." The word family echoed in the quiet kitchen. Harold hadn't used that word in many years. Emily smiled for the first time since she had arrived at the farm. The days turned into weeks. Harold taught Emily how to better care for the chickens, how to plant vegetables in the garden, and how to cook more elaborate dishes. She learned everything quickly and still found time to care for Benjamin, who was growing healthy and bright. During the evenings when the baby slept, Emily and Harold talked on the porch. She told him about her previous life, about the mother who never protected her, and about the stepfather who had abused her since she was 10. Harold, in turn, spoke about Dorothy, about how they had tried to have children for years, and how the house had felt empty after her passing. "Would Mrs. Dorothy have liked me?" Maria asked one night. "She would have loved you," Harold replied with certainty. "She always wanted a daughter." "And Benjamin?" "She would have gone crazy over that boy," he said, smiling at the memory of his wife. "Dorothy adored children." A month after Maria and Benjamin's arrival, life on the farm had found a new rhythm. Harold woke up early, tended to the animals and the vegetable garden. Maria took care of the house and Benjamin. In the afternoon they worked together, and in the evening they talked about the day while the baby played on the living room rug. But the tranquility was interrupted on a hot January afternoon. Harold was fixing the pasture fence when he heard the sound of a car approaching on the dirt road. In his 15 years of solitary life, he almost never had visitors. He ran to the house and found Maria hiding in the bedroom with Benjamin in her arms, peeking through the window. "It's her," whispered Maria, trembling. "It's my mother." Harold looked out the window and saw a woman of about 40 getting out of an old car. She looked around with a determined expression. "Stay here," he told Maria. "Don't leave the room." Harold went out to greet the visitor on the porch. The woman was thin and had tired features. Her hair was tied in a messy ponytail, and her clothes were simple. "Good afternoon," she said. "I'm Linda Davis. I'm looking for my daughter, a 12-year-old girl, curly hair, who ran away from home a month ago." "Good afternoon, Mrs. Margaret," Harold replied politely. "I'm Harold Thompson. I haven't seen any girl around here." "She had a baby with her," Linda continued. "My youngest son. She took him when she ran away." Harold kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt anger growing. That woman was lying shamelessly. Benjamin wasn't her son. He was her grandson, the result of the abuse she had allowed to happen in her own home. "As I said, I haven't seen anyone," he repeated. Linda looked at him suspiciously. "Can I take a look around your property? Someone in town said they saw a girl with a baby walking this way." "My property is private," Harold replied firmly, "and I've already said I haven't seen any children." "Listen here, old man," said Linda, changing her tone. "If you're hiding my daughter, you're going to have trouble. She's a minor and can't be unsupervised." "Are you insinuating that I would kidnap children?" asked Harold, raising his voice. "I'm just saying that if she's here, she needs to come home," Linda replied. "That's where she belongs." "And what if where she belongs isn't safe?" asked Harold, unable to contain himself. Linda looked at him, surprised. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about a child who might have run away for a good reason," he said. looking directly into her eyes. A child who might have suffered things a mother should protect her from. Linda's face turned red. I don't know what my daughter has lied to you about, but she's a rebellious teenager who makes up stories. Everything in our home is fine. If everything is fine, why did she run away? Because she's stubborn and doesn't want to follow rules, Linda replied quickly. My husband is strict, but he's a hard-working and honest man. Harold realized she was lying. There was something in the way she avoided looking directly at him, in how her hands trembled slightly. Well, as I said, I haven't seen your daughter, he repeated. If I see her, I'll send word. Linda stood still for a few more minutes, looking around the property as if expecting to see Maria appear from somewhere. Finally, she returned to the car. If you're lying to me, you'll regret it, she threatened before leaving. Harold waited until the sound of the engine had completely disappeared before going back inside. He found Emily crying in the room, clinging to Benjamin. She's gone, he said softly. You're safe. She'll come back, sobbed Emily. She won't give up. Why do you think that? Because my stepfather sent her to find me. He doesn't like to leave things behind, said Emily bitterly. Harold felt a chill. There was something sinister in the girl's words. What do you mean? Emily hesitated, then decided to tell the whole truth. My stepfather. He did those bad things to me because he said I was his. When I got pregnant and had Benjamin, he became possessive. He said the baby was his too and that no one could take us from the house. The farmer felt nauseated. The situation was even worse than he had imagined. Is that why you ran away? I ran because he started saying that when Benjamin grew a little, he would send me away and keep only the child, said Emily between sobs. He said I wasn't fit to be a mother, that he would find someone better to raise my son. Harold hugged the girl, feeling a deep anger toward those who should have protected her and failed miserably. That will never happen, he promised. No one will separate you from Benjamin. That night Harold made a decision that would change their lives forever. He went to the cabinet where he kept important documents and took out a yellowed folder. Inside were papers he hadn't looked at in years, certificates, records, farm documents. There was something Emily didn't know, something he had discovered by chance when he went to register a feed purchase at the town cooperative. The clerk, an elderly man who had known the whole region for decades, had commented about the Davis family looking for a missing daughter. I've known that family for a long time, the man had said. The girl is Linda's daughter, with her first husband, who left long before she married Gary, poor girl. Gary was never any good, but Linda always turned a blind eye. When he asked for more details, Harold discovered something that shocked him. Linda's first husband was named Robert Davis, and Robert Davis had been married, before Linda, to a woman named Dorothy Thompson. Dorothy Thompson, his wife. That meant Emily was Dorothy's stepdaughter, the daughter from Robert's first marriage. And if Robert was Emily's father, and Dorothy had been her stepmother for a few years before Robert abandoned the family, then Emily had a family connection to him that she never imagined. Harold spent the whole night looking at the documents and making calculations. Dorothy had never mentioned Robert Davis directly, but he remembered her talking about a stepdaughter, who stayed with the biological mother when the relationship ended, a little girl named Emily. The next morning, he called Emily for a serious talk. I need to tell you something, he said, showing the documents. I discovered something about you and Dorothy, my late wife. Emily looked at him confused. Your Dorothy knew my family? More than that, replied Harold. She was your stepmother for a few years when you were very small. Emily's eyes widened. What do you mean? Harold explained the whole situation, how Dorothy had been married to Robert Davis, Emily's biological father, before marrying him. How Dorothy had cared for Emily in her early years until Robert abandoned the family and left the girl with her biological mother. I vaguely remember a very caring lady, said Emily slowly. A lady who baked cakes and sang to me. But I was very little. I thought it was a dream. That was Dorothy, confirmed Harold, moved. She spoke of you sometimes, wondered how you were, if you had grown up well. She loved you like a daughter. Emily began to cry. So you're my stepfather? Not exactly, explained Harold. There's no legal bond, But Dorothy considered you her daughter, and I promised her I would take care of everything she loved. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, the revelation completely changed the dynamic between them. Emily was no longer a stranger Harold had decided to help out of kindness. She was part of Dorothy's family, someone his wife had loved and worried about for years. "Is that why you welcomed me so warmly?" asked Emily. "Because you knew who I was?" "I didn't know at first," admitted Harold. "I only found out later. But even if I had never found out, you were already part of my life." With this new information, Harold felt even more determined to protect Emily and Benjamin. It wasn't just a matter of compassion, but of honoring Dorothy's memory and keeping the promise he had made to her to care for those she loved. In the following days, he began taking legal steps. He sought out a lawyer in town and explained the situation. With the documents proving the family connection through Dorothy, he could petition for custody of Emily, especially considering the circumstances of abuse she had suffered. "It will be a long process," explained the lawyer, "but with the evidence of kinship and witnesses to the abuse, we have a real chance." Harold also went to the town doctor and took Benjamin for a full checkup. The baby was healthy and well cared for, which would be important to show that Emily, even though young, was a responsible mother. During this period, the farm's routine remained peaceful. Emily flourished under Harold's caring attention. She began smiling often again, played with Benjamin in the yard, and helped with household chores willingly. The baby grew strong and clever, already starting to crawl through the rooms of the house. But the peace was interrupted again one February afternoon. Harold was in the vegetable garden when he saw not one, but two cars coming up the dirt road. In the first, he recognized Linda. In the second, there was a man who could only be Emily's stepfather. He ran to the house and found Emily in the yard, hanging clothes on the line. When she saw the cars, she froze in terror. "It's him," she whispered. "It's Gary." Harold saw the panic in her eyes and acted quickly. "Go inside, lock the bedroom door and don't come out," he ordered. "What if they force the door?" "They won't," promised Harold, with a determination she had never seen before. Emily picked up Benjamin and ran into the house. Harold positioned himself on the porch, waiting for the visitors. Linda got out of the first car, accompanied by the man who could only be Gary Davis. Gary was a man of about 50, short and stocky, with a protruding belly and the strong arms of a manual laborer. His small eyes examined the property with a calculating interest, and Harold immediately disliked what he saw. "So you're the old man hiding our children," said Gary without preamble, walking up the porch steps uninvited. "Good morning to you too," Harold replied sarcastically. "And I already told your wife there are no children here." "Don't lie, old man," said Gary, moving closer. "We know Emily is here, and we want her back." "Why are you so sure she's here?" Linda spoke up for the first time. "Because we asked around town and heard you bought baby bottles and diapers at the market. A 60-year-old single man buying baby things. Isn't that suspicious?" Harold mentally admitted they had been clever. He hadn't thought his purchases could give him away. "I can buy whatever I want," he said. "I have grandchildren in other towns." "What grandchildren?" asked Gary suspiciously. "Everyone around here knows you've lived alone for 15 years. The conversation was getting tense. Harold could tell that Gary was the type of man who used physical intimidation to get what he wanted. His muscles were tense, ready to act if necessary. "Listen here, old man," said Gary, putting a hand on Harold's chest. "Emily is a minor. If you're keeping her here against her family's wishes, that's a crime. I can call the police." "Go ahead," Harold replied firmly. "And I'll tell them why a 12-year-old girl ran away from home in the middle of the night with a newborn baby." Gary's face turned red. "You don't know anything." "I know more than you think," said Harold, looking him straight in the eyes. "I know you abused that child. I know the baby is yours, not Linda's. And I know you only want her back to keep doing the same thing." Linda made a noise of protest, but Gary silenced her with a look. "Prove it," Gary challenged. "I don't need to prove anything," Harold answered. "If you think you're right, call the authorities, but I'll also tell my side of the story, and I'm sure Emily will tell the truth about what happened in that house." The threat had an effect. Gary took half a step back, clearly thinking about the consequences of an official investigation. "The girl is a liar," he said finally. "She makes up stories for attention." "A 12-year-old girl doesn't make up a baby," Harold retorted, "and she doesn't run away from home for no reason." At that moment, they heard Benjamin crying from inside the house. Everyone fell silent. The baby was awake and looking for his mother. "That's my boy," said Linda, taking a step toward the door. "Stop right there," said Harold, blocking the way. "No one enters my house without permission." "You can't stop me from getting my own grandson," said Linda. "Yes, I can," replied Harold. "Because he's not your grandson. He's your great-grandson, the son of your 12-year-old daughter and your husband. And you know that very well." The silence that followed was unsettling. Linda and Gary exchanged glances, clearly not expecting Harold to know the truth. "How did you—" Linda began. "How do I know?" Harold finished. "Because Emily told me everything, every sordid detail of what happened in that house. How you pretended not to know what your husband was doing to your daughter. How you allowed him to abuse a child for years. How you planned to take the baby away from her when he was born." Gary moved aggressively toward Harold. "Shut your mouth, you old bastard. You don't know anything." "I know you're a criminal," said Harold without backing down, "and that your wife is an accomplice. You made a child suffer for years." Gary raised his hand as if to hit Harold, but the farmer didn't flinch. "Go ahead and hit me," he said calmly. "It'll be one more thing to tell the police when they get here." "What police?" asked Linda nervously. "The ones I'll call if you don't get off my property right now," replied Harold. Gary and Linda looked at each other again. The situation wasn't going as they had planned. "This isn't over," Gary threatened. "We'll come back with authority." "Do that," said Harold, "and I'll be here with my lawyer and all the evidence of what you've done." The two went back to their cars, but before getting in, Gary shouted toward the house, "Emily, I know you're in there. You'll have to come home eventually. And when you do, things will be very different for you and the kid." Harold felt the urge to punch the man, but he restrained himself. Violence would only make things worse. After the cars were gone, he went into the house and found Emily sitting on the bedroom floor, holding Benjamin, crying desperately. "He'll carry out his threat," she sobbed. "He'll come back and take me away." "He won't," said Harold, kneeling beside her. "I won't let him." "How can you stop them? They're my legal parents. The law is on their side." "The law protects children who suffer abuse," explained Harold, "and I have something they don't know I have." "What?" Harold showed the documents he had set aside. "Proof that you are my stepdaughter. Dorothy was your stepmother, remember? That gives me the legal right to fight for your custody, especially in situations of abuse." Emily looked at the papers with hope rekindling in her eyes. "Really?" "Really. And more. Tomorrow we're going to town to file a police report about the abuse. We'll tell everything to the authorities before they have a chance to invent lies." The next morning, Harold and Emily went to town, leaving Benjamin with Mrs. Margaret, a trusted neighbor who had also known Dorothy. At the police station, Emily told her whole story to a social worker and a sheriff. Initially, it was difficult. Emily was nervous and afraid they wouldn't believe her. But as she spoke, the details she provided, the dates, the places, it all made sense. The sheriff, an experienced man, recognized the signs of a truthful testimony. "We will investigate," he promised. "And in the meantime, the girl stays under your protection, Mr. Harold. We have a court order for that." When they returned to the farm, Emily was more animated than Harold had seen since she arrived. "Are they really going to investigate?" she asked. "Yes, they are. And with luck, Gary will pay for what he did." In the following days, social workers visited the farm to assess the conditions in which Emily and Benjamin were living. They were impressed with the organization of the house, the affection with which Harold treated the children, and the baby's healthy development. "It's obvious the girl is being well cared for," said one of the social workers, "and the baby is strong and happy." The investigation into Gary and Linda also began to bear fruit. Neighbors of the family started to talk, saying they had always suspected something strange was happening in the Davis house. Some remembered hearing screams at night. Others mentioned that Emily always seemed scared and sad. A month later, Gary was arrested. The investigation revealed that he had abused not only Emily but also other girls in the area over the years. Linda was considered an accomplice by omission and lost the right to have any contact with Emily. "It's over," Harold said to Emily when they received the news. "You are safe forever." Emily cried, but this time they were tears of relief and happiness. The adoption process for Emily and Benjamin moved quickly after that. With Gary in jail and Linda without parental rights, there were no legal obstacles. Harold officially became the guardian of the two children. Life on the farm found a new rhythm. Emily returned to studying through distance learning that Harold arranged for her. Benjamin grew up surrounded by love and care. The property, which had been quiet for 15 years, was now always full of laughter, conversation, and life. Dear listener, if you are enjoying the story, please take a moment to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we are just starting out. Now continuing. 6 months after Emily and Benjamin's arrival, the transformation on the farm was complete. Harold had renovated the house, created a room of her own for Emily and a nursery for Benjamin. The vegetable garden had been expanded, and he taught Emily about sustainable farming and caring for the land. Emily, now 13, had developed a lot, not just physically but emotionally. The constant terror in her eyes had been replaced by a light of hope and happiness. She laughed often, played with Benjamin, and showed a natural talent for caring for the farm animals. Benjamin, who was now almost a year old, was a smart and healthy child. He walked around the house holding onto furniture, drooled on everything he found, and charmed everyone with his toothless smiles. To an outside observer, one would never imagine that family had been formed from such a traumatic situation. One Sunday afternoon, as Harold and Emily worked in the vegetable garden with Benjamin crawling on the lawn, she asked a question that took him by surprise. "Harold, can I call you Grandpa?" He stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Why?" "Because that's what you are to me. And to Benjamin, too. You saved us. You gave us a real family." Harold felt his eyes fill with tears. "Of course you can," he said, hugging her tight. "It would be an honor." At that moment, Benjamin managed to stand up by himself for the first time, took a few wobbly steps, and fell sitting on the lawn, clapping his little hands for himself. Emily and Harold laughed and ran to congratulate him. "Look at that!" exclaimed Emily. "He walked by himself." "Dorothy would be so proud," said Harold, thinking of his wife. "She always wanted to see a child take their first steps in this house." Emily looked at him tenderly. "She is seeing," she said with certainty. "I'm sure she's seeing." During the winter of that year, when Benjamin was already walking well, and Emily helped Harold with all the farm chores, they received an unexpected visit. It was Mrs. Margaret, the neighbor who had taken care of Benjamin on the day they went to the police station. "I came with some news," she said, sitting in the kitchen with them. "Gary was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and Linda moved away from the area. You'll never have any more trouble from them." The news was met with relief by everyone. Emily especially felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from her shoulders. "Now it's official," said Harold. "You are my grandchildren forever." "And you are our grandpa forever," replied Emily, kissing him on the cheek. Benjamin, who was sitting on the floor playing with wooden blocks Harold had made for him, raised his arms toward his adoptive grandfather. "Grandpa," he said clearly, his first word. Emily and Harold looked at each other, moved. Benjamin's first word had been Grandpa, directed at the man who had saved their family. "Did you hear that?" asked Emily, laughing and crying at the same time. "I heard," replied Harold, picking Benjamin up. "Did you hear that, my little grandson?" Benjamin laughed and hugged Harold's neck, repeating, "Grandpa, Grandpa." That was one of the happiest nights Harold had experienced since Dorothy's passing. The three of them had dinner together, Benjamin in his high chair babbling Grandpa at everything he saw, Emily talking about the books she was studying, and Harold planning the improvements he would make to the farm. Over the following years, the family grew in unity and love. Emily became a responsible and studious young woman, always caring for her brother with maternal dedication. Benjamin grew into an intelligent and affectionate child, who grew up knowing that Harold was his grandfather and Emily his mother, and that the story of how they became a family was special and unique. Harold, who had thought he would live alone until the end of his days, discovered that life still had many joys to offer. He taught Emily to drive the tractor, to care for the cattle they bought over time, to manage the farm's finances. He taught Benjamin to fish in the creek, to identify the plants in the garden, to treat the animals with kindness. When Benjamin turned 5 and Emily 18, she made an important decision. "Grandpa," she said one night after Benjamin had gone to sleep, "I want to study veterinary medicine." "Veterinary medicine?" asked Harold, surprised but proud. "Yes, I've learned so much from caring for the animals here on the farm. And I want to help other animals too," Harold smiled. "Your great-grandmother Dorothy would be very proud. She always said you were going to be special. Will you help me get into college?" "Of course I will," he promised. "We'll figure it out." And they did. Emily got a scholarship to a university in the region and graduated as a veterinarian 5 years later. Throughout her entire college period, she would return home on weekends to help Harold with the farm and take care of Benjamin. Benjamin, who was now 10 years old, was a smart and hard-working boy. He helped his grandfather with the animals, milked the cows they had bought, collected eggs from the chickens. He was a happy child who never knew about the trauma that marked his first months of life. At Emily's graduation, Benjamin and Harold were in the front row, applauding when she received her diploma. "Congratulations, daughter," said Harold, hugging her after the ceremony. "Thank you for everything, Grandpa. None of this would have been possible without you." "You two gave meaning to my life," he replied. "I should be the one thanking you." Emily opened a veterinary clinic in town, specializing in farm animals. Her first client was, naturally, Harold, who brought all the chickens in for a full checkup. "Dr. Emily?" he said formally when he arrived at the clinic, making her laugh. "Stop that, Grandpa," she said, but she was proud of the title. Over time, Emily's clinic became well known in the region. She had a special gift for treating animals, inherited from the years spent caring for the chickens, cows, and other animals on the farm. Many farmers came from far away just for her to treat their animals. Benjamin, now a teenager, showed an interest in engineering. He spent hours building things with wood and metal, creating contraptions to make the work on the farm easier. Harold encouraged him, remembering how good it was to have goals and dreams in life. One day, when Benjamin was 15 and Emily was already established as a veterinarian, the three of them were on the farm's porch, watching the sunset, when Benjamin asked a question that changed everything. "Grandpa, how did you meet my mother?" Emily and Harold exchanged glances. Over the years, they had told Benjamin a simplified version of the story, that he and Emily had arrived at the farm when they were little and Harold had adopted them. They had never gone into details about the circumstances. "Why do you want to know, son?" asked Harold. "Because at school there's an assignment about a family tree, and I don't know anything about my family before coming here." Emily took a deep breath. They knew this day would come. "It's a long story," she said, "and not all parts are easy to hear." "I'm old enough," said Benjamin with maturity. "I want to know the truth." For the next 2 hours, Emily and Harold told the whole story. From the night Emily arrived at the chicken coop with baby Benjamin, through the abuse she had suffered, the discovery of the connection with Dorothy, the legal battle, Gary's imprisonment. Benjamin listened to everything in silence, asking occasional questions to clarify details. When they finished, he was quiet for a long time. "So my biological father is in prison," he finally said. "He is," confirmed Emily, "and he'll be there for a long time yet. And my biological mother was also his victim." "I was," said Emily softly, "but I survived, and I managed to protect you." Benjamin looked at her with admiration. "You were 12, and you saved me, and Grandpa saved both of us." "It was God who brought you three together," said Harold. "Dorothy always said that God never abandons those who need help." Benjamin stood up and hugged Emily tightly. "Thank you for saving me," he whispered. Then he hugged Harold. "And thank you for saving us." "You saved me too," said the old farmer, moved. "You gave purpose to my life." That night, Benjamin made his family tree in an unconventional way. Instead of putting names and birth dates, he drew the farm in the center with 3 figures, Harold, Emily, and himself, Around it, he drew chickens, the vegetable garden, the creek, all the elements that were part of his happy life. During the presentation of his assignment at school, he explained, "My family didn't start with blood, but with love. My grandfather found us on a difficult night and decided we were family. Since then, we built a life together on the farm. I learned that real family is who stands by your side when you need them." The teacher was moved, and Benjamin got the best grade in the class. Years later, when Benjamin entered engineering school, Emily was already married to a fellow veterinarian, a good man named David, whom Harold had completely approved of. They lived in the city but visited the farm every weekend. Harold, now 78, was still active and healthy, but he felt the weight of age. Benjamin decided to study at a nearby university so he could continue living on the farm and taking care of his grandfather. "You don't have to do this for me," said Harold. "It's not just for you," replied Benjamin. "It's because I love this farm. This is my home, my history. And one day I want to raise my children here too." Harold smiled, imagining the property full of children again, running among the chickens and playing in the vegetable garden just as Benjamin had done. "Dorothy would be very happy knowing the farm will stay in the family," he said. "She knows," said Benjamin with certainty. "I'm sure she knows." That Christmas, the farm hosted a special celebration. Emily and David brought their newborn baby girl, Dorothy, named after the great-grandmother she never met. Benjamin had finished his first year of college with excellent grades. Harold was healthy and happy. When they sat down for Christmas dinner, Harold looked around the table. Emily holding the baby, David helping Benjamin serve the drinks, the constant motion of a happy, close-knit family. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, raising his glass of grape juice, which he always served on special occasions. Everyone raised their glasses. 15 years ago, Harold began, 2 children arrived at my farm on a cold night. I thought I was saving them, but in truth, they were the ones who saved me. They gave me a family, a purpose, a reason to wake up happy every day." He paused, emotional. "Today, looking at all of you, I see our family has grown even more. We have a new generation, little Dorothy, who will grow up knowing true love. I see dreams fulfilled. Emily became an admired professional. Benjamin is building his future, and I've had the joy of watching it all happen. I toast to the family we built together, to Emily's courage in seeking me out that night, to Benjamin's wisdom in forgiving the past and embracing the future, and to the memory of Dorothy, who from somewhere is seeing that her love lives on in this house." Everyone toasted with tears in their eyes and smiles on their faces. "To family," said Emily. "To family," repeated Benjamin. "To family," added David, kissing his baby girl's forehead. Baby Dorothy chose that moment to give her first conscious smile, as if she were joining the toast too. When everyone went to sleep that night, Harold stayed alone on the porch looking at the stars. He thought about the incredible journey he had lived, from absolute loneliness to the joy of having a large, loving family. At 82, Harold Thompson continues to live on the farm with Benjamin, who graduated as an engineer and developed sustainable technologies for small rural producers. Emily and David built a house on the neighboring property and raised 4 children, all brought up with the values of family, hard work, and love that they learned from Harold. The farm prospered and became a model of sustainable family farming in the region. Benjamin married a teacher named Sarah, and they had 3 children who grew up hearing the story of how the family was formed on a cold night 15 years ago. Harold, now a great-grandfather to 7 children, spends his days teaching his grandchildren how to care for the chickens, the vegetable garden, and the animals. Tell them the same stories you used to tell Emily and Benjamin. Talk about Dorothy, and about how love can turn the toughest situations into unexpected blessings. The chickens in the coop are no longer the same ones from that distant night, but the coop is still there, renovated and cared for. The children play in it, unaware that it was there that everything began, on a night when a frightened girl and a hungry baby found not just shelter, but the start of a family love story that would last for generations. During winter nights, when the whole family gathers in the living room around the fireplace Benjamin installed, Harold looks at each face lit by the fire and knows Dorothy was right. God truly does not abandon those in need. Sometimes help comes in the form of a chicken coop door that opens at the right time, a heart willing to love, and a family formed not by blood, but by the daily choice to care for one another. The story of the farmer who heard noise in the chicken coop and couldn't believe his eyes became a legend in the region, not because of the tragedy that started it, but because of the transformation it sparked. A story that proves that even in the most difficult circumstances, love has the power to create miracles, and that a true family is one that is chosen every day through small acts of care, protection, and affection. And so, on a farm in the countryside of the United States, among chickens that sing at dawn and children who grow up happy, the story continues to be written each day, one page at a time, with much love and hope that there is always a new chance to start over when least expected. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you are watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Harold made the right decision in protecting Emily and Benjamin? We would love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.